Exercise 1, AutoCAD 2020, actually 2022. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at the basic functionality with 3D solids. And as you can see here, this is an actual model we're going to build today. And it's a couple blocks stacked on each other, united together, and then I'm going to put these fillets here and here. We're going to make sure there's a hole drilled in there, and we're going to put these chamfers. That's the blue edges that you put in there, which is basically an angle versus a radius, which makes up a fillet. We'll finish it off with shelling it out at 0.062, as you can see there. And so let's begin. Go to New, select AutoCAD 3D, and hit Open. Now, what you're going to probably need to do to activate your 3D tools and the Visualize tools is right-click on the tab box over here on the right and find Show Tabs and select 3D Tools and Visualize. Once you have those, now we could go ahead and work on the interface. The first thing I'd like you to do is over here on the right, notice this is our rotation tool there. This block with the different front, top, and right on it enables us to just click on those surfaces and our part will immediately go to that alignment. And just to the upper left of that, you'll see a little home or a house. Click on that. That brings us to an isometric view. And from here, go ahead and click on the top of that box. And that brings us normal to the very top surface. At this point, let's go to the Visualize tab and find this little button right here where it says Realistic. Let's go to 2D Wireframe. And this is entirely preference. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. But I typically like to have my grid displaying as well as the snap mode. Turn it on right now, and then we'll go ahead and turn it off a little bit later. We toggle it quite often. Also over here we have the O snaps, and basically these are all the like centers and endpoints and midpoints that you could have it automatically find. We'll go through that as well. But let's begin with drawing that model. So let's go to the Home tab, and then over here find the corner rectangle and hover over the origin. That's your zero marker in space, as you can see over to the lower right of your cursor. We're at 0, 0 because it's snapping to that because we have our grid turned on. Let's go ahead and click and drag to the upper right, and it's going to snap by ½ inch increments. But what we could do here, you'll see there's little dimension areas in there that you could enter dimension right now. Like for example, it's the X dimension. Just go ahead and type in 3 and hit the Tab key on your keyboard. Now go ahead and type in 5 and hit Enter. To zoom to fit, go ahead and select the top of that box, and it should fit that to the screen. Now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and add our circle. So hit the little arrow underneath circle, and you'll see there's a variety of ways you could add a circle. This one we're looking for is center diameter because that's the information given in the training guide. Now to show you where to find the training guide, and the training guide is currently under construction, and you'll actually find it at vertanu1.com, and then just click on the Instructional Manuals tab, and you'll go to Autodesk AutoCAD 3D, and that will take you to this PDF training guide. And I'm starting off on page 15, and ignore some of this. This will be changed hopefully over the next few months. No promises, but the idea is it has the dimensions that you're going to need to put in. It's using Inventor though in the training guide, so just be careful of that. There are areas that I've updated it already, but it's a work in progress. Alright, now let's go. We have that circle diameter given at 0.75, so make sure you select center diameter and locate this where it says 1 and 4. So for the X, we're in location 1 inch off the X and 4 inches on the Y. Go ahead and click and drag out a circle and type 0.75 and hit Enter. And that is the proper location we want. Now we could actually turn off our snap to drawing grid. And let's add another one here. Let's go to, well actually, you know what? No, yeah, let's just go over here to the rectangle tool, and in that lower left corner, make sure you get the green square. That means it's snapping to that. Click and drag it across here, and you're going to type in 3 and tab 1.5 and hit enter. So we're drawing all of the entities here right now. Now, if you're wondering how I'm rotating, hold the Shift key down on your keyboard and hold down the wheel. Now the wheel, by scrolling it, zooms in and out. You could actually use a focal point where your cursor is located and zoom into that region just by scrolling towards it. But if you depress it like it's a mouse button and hold Shift, you could rotate. Okay, let's go to the isometric, I should say, which is the home button over here. And you can see we're in isometric view now. And let's go, and we're going to use the 3D tools. Now go to press pull, and we could go ahead and select this bounding area. And this is going to be 1 inch thick. So go ahead and type in 1 and hit enter. Now hover over this region, click, and this is going to be 0.5. Notice it automatically accepted the whole. Now if you wanted multiple entities selected, see it says multiple down below here, you could go ahead and click on that and select other entities too. But we just want this one, hit enter, and that's at 0.5. Now what it did is these are disjointed bodies. I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard in the upper left corner. Now I want those to be one united body. So to do that, we're going to go over here to Union and select this entity and this entity here. Now you might see you might have a difficult time selecting the entities. I actually clicked and dragged a little fence around it. Over here there's no filter. Make sure that's on just to make sure you got it. Hit enter, and now notice that little line disappeared. Because they're united together as one continuous solid. Let's now go back to Visualize and switch it from 2D wireframe to, you could go with conceptual, is pretty nice. I like that one. And it's entirely up to you. There's shaded with edges. That's a nice one as well. And then there's also shaded shades of gray. There's a bunch of them. You could even go with X-ray if you wanted. And that gives it transparency. But I'm going to go with shaded with edges. And I'll go ahead and click on the home button. Now it looks as though mine went with a perspective view, and that's a vanishing point. If you ever want to turn perspective off, just type in perspective down below here and hit enter. And see it's set to 1. It's binary. It's either on or off. So let's go ahead and set it to 0 and hit enter, and then it turns it off. I personally do like perspective on, so if you want you could hit enter again. It will go back to that feature and you can type in 1. So it's entirely up to you. When you go to wireframe though, it turns off perspective usually. So, but now that we're not in it, we're here. So we could go ahead and rotate. Now hold shift and your middle wheel, hold it down and rotate it so you're looking at it from this vantage point. Now you could actually even click on this little cube on the block there, and that brings us to an actual isometric view of that area. Now we're going to go ahead and we want to go to 3D tools, and the first thing we're going to put in are the fillets. So if you don't see fillet, hit the little arrow next to chamfer, or maybe you see fillet, either way, click, and now we're going to go with radius and type in 1 inch just to be on the safe side. Make sure you have it. Now hover over this edge and click, and you'll see a preview. Go ahead and hover over this edge over here. Now these are the only two that we're going to want for right now. Okay, and once you got those two previews, hit enter and enter again, and now you have the fillets. All right, now we're going to learn chamfer. Hit the little arrow to the right of fillet and you'll find chamfer under there. Now chamfer is an angle. Now you can either specify it by distance to distance or angle to distance. There's a number of ways. we're going to go ahead and click on distance and type in 0.125, and that's for the first distance. Hit enter, and 0.125, that's the second distance. Now on a 90-degree edge like we have here, if the distances are equal from where it's to position the angle, it's going to be 45 degrees by default. Let's go ahead and now select this edge here and go around, and you'll see the preview. Now I've tried to do the top, and I sometimes have difficulty with it, so we'll do this one here, hit enter, and hit enter again. It should go back to chamfer, and it should remember your settings. So now you could go ahead and just select this edge here, and that edge there. Now there is a loop, as you could see there, but the loop would go all the way around. We don't want it to go all the way around, just around those edges. So hit enter and enter. Okay, so there we have our model. Let's go ahead now and hold shift and rotate it so you're looking at this vantage point on the underbelly. And if you want, it's this little cube between left, front, and bottom if you want to click on that. Now we're going to go and we're going to shell this out to make it a thin-walled plastic part. Go to shell and select the body, and now you select the faces you want to remove that are going to be opened up. So click on this face, click on this face, and click on this face. Now if you accidentally get a different face, you can hold shift and deselect it by selecting it again. But that's all we want. Go ahead and enter, and now look at that. It's going to ask us for how far do we want it offset. So type in 0.062. Hit enter, and you can just hit exit here and exit. And there it is. If you rotate around, you could see we've actually generated a nice little model here. Pretty quickly too. All right, now let's look at putting some color, adding some colors to it like you saw earlier. That's going to be under Visualize. And we're going to keep it with shaded with edges, but if we go over here, you'll find Materials Browser, this little box here. Click on that. Now, what I like to do is click on Category until it categorizes them. And if you hit the little arrow up and scroll down, you'll find metals and plastics, and it categorizes them together by that. So that's I like using the category. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead, and I like this smooth navy. That looks pretty good. Hit that little arrow right there, and you could choose something else if you prefer. And let's go with, let's see here, this is transparent. I don't want transparent. Texture gray. I want to, let's see, smooth white. I'm going to hit that one. All right, now what we can do, we could find, like for example, if we want to make the part white, we could right click on it and select objects to be applied. Click on the object and hit enter, and it doesn't look like all that much happened. In fact, I'm not sure, maybe that was the default color it had. But let's do something else here. Now let's go to 3D Tools, and remember that filter option there? Go to filter and select face. Now just remember, you might have to go back and change it. It does have a little bit of built-in AI usually, so it turns it off when needed, which is really pretty cool. But just to be on the safe side, remember where that's located in 3D Tools, and that's the face filter. So select these chamfered faces and select the whole face. And now over here, now you could do it by clicking right on the actual entity there, or you could actually just hit the little arrow up and it will add it too. And you could pre-select, post-select, so there's a number of ways to do it. Let's try that one more time. Let's say we want this edge to be highlighted like it's a cross-section, either red or yellow. Go ahead and pre-select that face. Oops, I got two there. Now here's where we could use our shift tool and deselect it. Now I'm going to go with the red and hit that little arrow up, and it should just add that right in there. All right, so there's a whole variety of different colors and things you could add to that, and textures, and add what you like. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now let's go back to visualize. And so now that we have that completed, what we could take a look at also over here if we want to enhance that. Now you could try these different options here, like we have shade with edges. If you go to realistic, it gives it a little bit different appearance. But now if we go over here, you could turn shadows, full shadows. You could add light sources. We're not going to do that. But if you go to lights here, and if you go to exposure, you could actually drag it a little bit to the left, maybe 7.7 or higher. It'll brighten it up a little bit. You could really see that white plastic now. Now over here, this is the warm light, the balance. I'm not a fan of that too much right now for starting off, so it's up to you, but you're going to give it a green or bluish or orange tint. Don't need that right now. I don't think it looks all that great until you get more advanced, and you could tinker with that on your own. All right, so now you'll see this render to size. Hit the little arrow, and you can render it to different settings here. High resolution. I'm just going to go with the 800 by 600 and hit render. Now it allows you to install a library or just work without it. I'm going to select work without it, and there we can actually see it's a little bright, and you might want to tone down that light a little bit, but then you can just hit print at this point, or you can save the image and do a variety of different things. All right. And that render, by the way, if you do use that, there's render to cloud. If you're working on a tablet that doesn't have a lot of horsepower, perhaps, you could render to the cloud. And I think there's a limit to that, definitely, but I think you could purchase, if you're working for a company or whatnot, you can purchase additional time. But let's say we want to go a bit larger there. And also what I'm going to do is I have my CPUs turned on here. You could see the specs on my computer. Feel free, you don't have to know all this. If you want to be a CAD administrator or expert at this, this is information that's really helpful. But if you're just having fun, you can fast forward through this section. All right, what I did, I hit Control-Alt-Delete on my keyboard and go to Task Manager. This comes up, and you can go to Performance, and you can see it'll show you how many threads you have running. I have 16 threads. It's an 8 CPU, and you can see I have an NVIDIA Quadro, which is a professional graphics card for CAD specifically, and media. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to see this when I hit, we're going to select render, we're going to do this higher resolution one, and you'll see, oops, that didn't take. Let's click on that again, work without. And you can see they all are being used. So this is actually a multi-threaded operation. Those of you who are really into your computers and fast computers, the more threads you have, the faster this is going to work. So you can say they all peaked just for a brief moment there, because this is a very simple rendering. All right. So that pretty much concludes that exercise 1. Now the labs, I'm going to go through really quick here with you. Are in the training guide, and on page 21 here you could actually see this is the first one. It's a letter F, sideways, and then this one right here. Now generally I suggest you try and give these a go, although we didn't use all the tools that you might want, like just the ordinary line tool here for this one. So we see it's a 2 by 3.5, and we're going to put those in, and then we have it stacks from 1 to 1.75 to 2.5, and then 8.5 to 1 inch, and then it's a ½ inch thick. So let's give that a go. Let's go to New, AutoCAD 3D, and again I'm just going to go to the Home button, top, and zoom out a little bit here. If you want, you could go to the wireframe. You don't need to, though. It's all up to you. Okay, I'm going to go to the Home, and I'm going to go to Line. Now there is Polyline, and that's very useful too. Polyline then makes it actually a watertight boundary condition pretty readily. It's good for extrusions. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click, and we're supposed to go 2 inches vertical, enter. I go to the right, And we're supposed to go 1 inch. Actually, let's zoom out there. It's supposed to be 1 inch to the right, then back down 1 inch. Enter. And then across here, 0.75. Enter. And then up 1 inch. Enter. And sadly, because I should have turned off my grid at this point, you can see that line, what it did. I'm going to hit escape. But anyhow, you could go back. Let's do that with just the line tool this time. All right, so turn on the grid, 1 inch. Actually, this is going to go 2 inches high. Zoom out, and this is going to go 1 across, and then this goes 1 down. And I'm typing in these values, by the way, and then 0.75. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the snap. And I could just go straight up. You could even infer to this, so you don't have to type in those values. You can just use what's given us there. And then this one goes, I'm not going to go back to that sheet, but maybe we'll just go 0.8, enter, and then down about 1.25, enter, across, just take it 1 inch, and down. Now we want to snap to this. Now I should actually be using my training guide, but I'm not toggling between it, so I snap like that. I hit escape. Now, that's probably wrong. In fact, let's go back to the training guide here, and some of those dimensions were incorrect. What I want to show you, though, is parametrics. This is a little glimpse of parametrics. You don't have to use it for this one, but if you like, it's really kind of nice, parametrics. We click on this. Now, notice there's auto constraint. Click on that. Click and drag, or just click and then click over this point. Hit enter. It's going to add a bunch of points for us. And I would recommend actually go to visualize and change this to wireframe, and then click on top there. Now you could see it's added these constraints, like this is actually a constraint for parallelism. That's perpendicularity. This locks it in, because if we were to just move it without constraints, things are not attached. This actually attaches things. So let's go back to parametrics, click on the lock, click on that bottom corner, and now that's locked too. Now we could go to the horizontal dimension, click on this point and this point, drag it down, click. That was pretty close, 3.5, that's supposed to be. And then hit enter again. And let's go with vertical, or we could just go with linear, but I'm going to go with vertical there. This point to this point, click, and that is supposed to be 2. And then we could go, I'm just going to go with linear here. This one right here, this one here. That is supposed to be 1, so we're in good shape there. Hit enter. This point here to this point, and that is supposed to be 0.75. Hit enter. And hit enter again. Now this one, let's take a look. Let's say we wanted to actually have it work just like this, where we have these dimensions stacked like this. And this is called a baseline dimension. When you see that, when that's the baseline on the back, and then every subsequent dimension is based off of it. That hence is why they call it baseline. So 2.5. So that means we could go ahead and select this point to this point and make that 2.5. Hit enter. And so you could add them exactly like they are in there. Let's and you see how it moved things around. Parametrics by most AutoCAD users is not used, from what I've seen out in industry, that often. It's a very powerful capability. It's what Inventor is based on in most modern CAD systems. AutoCAD added it several years ago actually, but it's quite nice. And let's see here, 0.85 for this next one. Click on those 2 points. There we go, 0.85. And then finally this one, enter again. And enter, by the way, resets, so it actually goes back to the tool we were using, and that's supposed to be 1 inch. All right, so now we have all the dimensions that we needed. We can now go to Home, and here's where it gets a little weird. Where if we use polyline, it would have actually been better, but now if we go to 3D tools, and if you go to press pull, click, and let's rotate now, and we can see we could extrude that up. Now it seems as though if it's fully defined, it's going to go ahead and make it as a solid, but I've had it where I've had surfaces, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, but we want this to be 0.5, so I use press pull for that. And now we could go back to the visualize, and let's go with shaded with edges, and there it is. Now here is the problem that lies in this. The actual sketch is parametric, which is wonderful, because in industry things change all the time, so you want the ability to change. And you don't necessarily need parametrics. You could extend lines pretty easily. You're going to see as we progress through these training courses. Without this, you could do that, but it does add a nice little bit of functionality. So let's say we want to change this 3.5, double click on that. Let's say we want to make it 4, hit enter. You see it extends it out, but it doesn't update the solid. So that's one of the limitations. Not that that's a big deal, because remember you have the ability over here to go to parametrics. We could have done that, not parametrics, I'm sorry, 3D tools, and we could have gone to press pull, and we could have just pulled that out. Just drag that and go the extra 0.5, and we have it extended there. But it doesn't update the solids, and that's what it would do in Inventor and other 3D CAD packages that are fully parametric with history. Okay. Now the next lab, what you want to do for these two, by the way, is this one you would just go to, you could go right here to save or save as, and you could save this as capital L1. All right. And now for that part we did earlier, this would be capital E1 for exercise 1. So L for labs, E for exercises, Q for quizzes. And so I'm not going to bother doing that one. But let's go on to the next one. Let's go to New, AutoCAD 3D. And from here, we're going to go ahead and let's go back to the Home button, go to Top. I really do I like working in the wireframe, and turn on the grid. Now for this next one, which is on page 22, by the way, if you download this, you could actually rotate it. There's the download button. But we're going to go ahead, and you can see this is a 3x5, and it's 1.5 inches thick, and then it has this cutout here, 1 inch thick, deep. It's only 1 inch thick actually. And then we have this pattern, okay, of holes. Now I haven't taught you how to use patterns yet, or mirroring for that matter. When you see these little equal symbols, that indicates it's symmetric on both sides. So let's do that 3x5. So let's go to Home, go to the rectangle tool, snap on there, and we're going to make this 5 inches wide, tab by 3. So it's actually just rotated from the last one. Go to Top to let it fit. Let's go ahead and click on this, and let's turn off the snap. We're going to have this go, let's see here, 1.5. Actually, let's hit Control Z or hit undo. Now with this one, there's a couple things we could do. We could find the midpoint, and we could see it's 1.5 in the center. So technically, we could probably draw that off the center too. So if we did something like this, we drew a little rectangle right at the center. See where, let's turn off the snap there. And over here on the O snap, make sure you select midpoint. And now we can find the midpoint. Now click and drag this down. This is going to be 0.75 because 0.75 times 2 is 1.5, and that's the opening in the center. So if we have that, 1/2 is what we're drawing here, and snap the center pretty easily. Okay, and then we hit Tab, and it's 3 for the length. Now let's take a look at the mirror tool, see how that works. Over here is mirror. Okay, we're going to select that rectangle, hit Enter, and now specify this point to this point. And we don't want to erase the source object. There we go, hit Escape. All right, so we have that there. Now we could put in the holes. So let's go to this, let's see, it's in the center diameter. And looking at this, they're 0.5 diameter, 0.75 off each edge. So we could go ahead and just right about there, click and drag that out, 0.75. And that looks too big. That must have gone array. So if you right click on it, actually, you could go to Quick Properties, and we could see the circle, and this is a way to edit this. And we could see the radius is 0.375. And did I look at the, oh, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be 0.5 for the diameter. So go to the diameter, type in 0.5. And so you're able to actually edit these things just by clicking on them that way too. Now we're going to go ahead and let's use our parametrics for this. Go to Auto Constrain, click here, release, drag it across, hit Enter. And you can see we have a bunch of constraints there. Now let's go to the lock and lock our corner in. Click there. All right. And let's lock this one in too, just so that doesn't move on us. All right. Now that we have that, let's go to the linear, select the circle to this edge, drag that off there, and that's going to be 0.75. Now what it did there is it moved our geometry versus our circle. So let's hit undo. All right, what we need to do is we need to define the actual box first. So click on linear. Let's actually lock this in first. Now could we lock it just with the lock tool? You could, but remember we want this to be editable. So hit Enter again, and let's get this one here to this one here, 0.5 inches, hit Enter. And then Enter again. Actually, let's go to diameter here. And click and Enter. All right, now we could go back to linear and move these. So let's select the circle to this edge. That's going to be 0.75. Enter. Circle to the left edge. And this is to position it 0.75 off that edge. All right, now let's hit Escape. Now we can mirror this across. So let's go back to Home, and let's go to the Mirror tool, select this entity, and hit Enter. Now select this point to that point, and no, we don't want to delete that object. And now let's go ahead and select that one. And that one, let's go to mirror. And now first point to mirror line, because we have mid selected, and that's the second one. And no. All right. Now they are all parametric. Now if you didn't want that, we could have done this. We could actually click on the parametrics and hit delete. And now we could actually substitute with equal. Here's equal. So we could say make this, or make them all equal to that. Hit Enter again. This, and that one, Enter. This and that one, Enter. All right. We didn't have to do that, but I'm just trying to show you the capabilities of parametrics. You also have symmetry. We can make those all move symmetrical to one another. So if we select symmetrical, we can click on this and that, and I'll select a symmetry line, which I don't have. Oh, That did it? Yeah, oh, that did it. Yeah, there we had that symmetry line. So as you can see, you can do that. And so what that does, if one moves and updates, the other will. So watch this. Let's say we change this to 0.85. They both move together. Now notice the others don't have that symmetry, so it's not going to update. So let's just hit undo there. But anyhow, again, I'm just showing you some examples of parametrics inside AutoCAD. All right, we are ready to extrude this. So let's rotate it. And let's go to 3D. And we could do press pull. Now, let's actually, we could just do sections here. It's not such a bad idea. Click on this. We'll make it 1.5. Enter. Click on this. 1.5. Enter. And then this. And if we do multiple, select multiple there, we can select this one too. Enter. And those are supposed to be 0.5. All right, and this is kind of a cool way to model, quite honestly. It's pretty neat. And there's a dozen ways you can do this, and there's better ways to model too. But let's merge those, and actually let's go to Visualize and turn it to Shaded with Edges. Okay, the reason I left the edges on is so we could see this. I'm going to hit Escape, and something bizarre has gone on with my cursor, but we're going to go back to the 3D tools and just unite those. So go to Union, this one, that one, that one, that one. Hit Enter. Now they're all one. And there it is. And that concludes Exercise 1 and Labs 1 and 1B. So be sure to save this as L1.